Good evening, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast in existence that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. I'm your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro, 2_ANT. Find me on TikTok under the exact same handle, pro, 2_ANT. A lot of film clips and video pieces on the TikTok, in addition to the Twitter, along with some tomfoolery and chicanery. In tonight's episode of Disguise Coverage, I'm very excited. Normally, on Disguise Coverage in season, we have a similar format that we like to operate with here on the show week to week. I usually incorporate a guest for insight into the upcoming opponent, but with the state of the Bills and some concern around this team, I also don't want to say state of the Bills like, oh my God, like, red alert, state of the Bills type of thing. But nonetheless, with the state of the Bills and the concern around this team, especially in specific areas, I decided to pivot and break down the most important matchup this week for the Buffalo Bills versus the Cleveland Browns with some game tape and some advanced metrics. And then on the back end of this episode, have a bit of group therapy. Again, on the back end of the show, put out a tweet earlier today asking people what concerns or questions or worries or thoughts or anything and everything they had around this team, players, positions, coaches, anything and everything. And then in addition to, so what's the live chat we'll have, right, in terms of concerns and thoughts and worries, because we're a worrisome bunch in Bills Mafia. Most of you folks know I'm one of the co-hosts of the Cover One Film Room, so I decided to bring some of that film piece to Disguise Coverage tonight, and if it goes well, potentially make it a regular staple of the show going forward. The reason being, especially again, that focus in tonight's episode, right? The matchup between the Browns run game and the Bills run defense is not only the most important matchup for this game in a vacuum between the Bills and Browns, but it also ties into a pretty common worry or concern around the Buffalo Bills lately. The Buffalo Bills run defense really stemming, there were a couple times early in the year, but really stemming from their performances after the bye week, Green Bay, the Jets, and then this past week against Minnesota. The Bills run defense has shown some vulnerability, and there are certain schematic reasons and pieces. And as Michael says, as Michael comes in and says, weather report, is that the most important matchup? It could be. It could be, Michael. Michael, I appreciate you. You usually catch the episodes on the back end, not necessarily live, but I appreciate you joining me live tonight. I wonder if it's because I'm showing some film, but either way, I appreciate you being here. Everybody concerned about the weather. I got a lot of that on Twitter. Charles already coming in and saying it'll be cold. Yeah, we're supposed to get like a gajillion feet of snow. Might be chilly. Nice plug, Roy. Well done. But this matchup between the Bills run defense and the Browns run game, again, it's the most important matchup in a vacuum, in how if you want to silo it down into this individual matchup. The Browns are a run-first team. They're very good at it. The Bills defense is a pass-first defense. They like to use two high shells. They like to fit the run with 6 or 7-man boxes. That is their forte. The Browns eat those alive. I'm going to show you how they do that tonight with some game tape and also speak to it with some advanced metrics. But again, it's more than just this game. We saw what happened to the Buffalo Bills against the New York Jets on the final drive of that game against the New York Jets, where the Jets just ran it down the Buffalo Bills' throat and had some success in the rest of the game running as well. Not too much, but has some. We saw the week before where the Packers had success, especially in the second half, but early on as well against the Buffalo Bills. But then there was all those caveats of, well, you know what? The Bills were cool with it. They were playing pass first. They were cool with the Packers grinding out, 8 to 12 yards a clip because they would do bend but don't break. They wouldn't give up points. They would let the Packers work the clock, and they had the lead, and they'd get out of it, yada, yada. There were some rumblings of it then. But then having the Jets find success and then beat the Buffalo Bills, and then the Minnesota Vikings reel off an 81-yard touchdown run with Dalvin Cook, and then run it down the Bills' throat a bit in that first series in overtime, along with having some success peppered throughout in the earlier parts of the game. It goes back to, I think, a theme that we've seen the last several weeks, but also call a spade a spade. I don't necessarily subscribe to the paranoia for this specific instance, but I am a very paranoid and tortured sports fan. I grew up as a Buffalo Bills and Boston Red Sox fan. And even though the Red Sox have won several World Series in my lifetime now, that has not deterred me from always thinking the rug is going to be pulled out from under me. A lot of Bills fans are feeling like, I'm like, oh, what's up, Autumn? Appreciate you. Oh, Michael says, I've been doing trivia Wednesdays that goes to 8 lately, but not today. Got to exercise the brain differently tonight. I appreciate you joining me and exercising your brain tonight, but I also don't forgive you for stabbing me in the back for trivia. Although I would like to know what kind of trivia you are doing because it sounds fun and exciting, and I'm going to message you in the Cover One Slack channel that is available only to Cover One insiders. I'm going to message you about it because it sounds exciting. But nonetheless, I digress. The Bills have struggled against the run these past several years, despite the fact that they've been one of the best defenses statistically in raw metrics or advanced metrics or DVOA. However you want to look at it, the Bills have been a very good run defense, not even run defense, a total defense these past several years, but they've had vulnerabilities in the run. So all of a sudden, when again, you have another offseason where the Bills revamp the defensive line, especially on the interior, and then all of a sudden some of those warts from previous years start to creep up a little bit, I think it's natural, right, to start to think, oh boy, here we go again, and to have those worries and to have those fears. But some of those fears are warranted, some of those are not. But that's what we're going to talk about in this episode tonight. Again, focusing on game tape and advanced metrics. We're going to dive into the Buffalo Bills' performance against the Minnesota Vikings in several areas against the run, show you what worked, show you what didn't. And then we're going to tie in some Browns film in order to give you an accurate picture of why their run game is so dangerous, so successful, and how this matchup can overall play out, right? I want to tie it in with who the Buffalo Bills are, what they can be, strengths, weaknesses, vulnerabilities, all that kind of stuff, and then tie that in and bring it together with who the Cleveland Browns are and how these two forces will meet each other in this game. And then on the back end, we're going to do a little bit of group therapy. As I mentioned earlier, put a tweet out into the Twitterverse asking, worries, thoughts, concerns, anything and everything coming into this game. Got a bunch of responses in regards to that tweet and also in my DM. So I'm going to read the most common amongst all those responses and find the themes. We're going to break down some of it in addition to what you folks have in the live chat. Again, that'll be on the back end of the episode. We love the engagement here on Disguise Coverage. So with that being said, for those of you who are joining us live, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate you. If you're here now, please drop a like on this video. If you're watching later, please drop a like on this video. It goes a long way towards helping the show and the brand to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. And also just makes me feel warm in my heart, makes me feel loved and appreciated. So please drop a like on this video if you would be so kind. Ooh, Michael says, Cover One Slack is the best place for Bills talk, especially recently. Yes, that is very true. That is very true. Let's dive into it. Let's dive into this matchup, the Buffalo Bills run defense versus the Cleveland Browns run game. The first thing I want to say, I know this Browns offense is run through the run game, and rightfully so. They have a tremendous offensive line, although they're banged up a bit, but they have a tremendous offensive line. They've had tremendous coaching up front. They've got two very good running backs, but this offense as a whole has been good this year. Coming into this week, Cleveland Browns offense overall is sixth in DVOA, third for the rush, which makes sense, but 10th in the pass. I know Jacoby Brissett has his limitations, and when people think of good quarterbacks or sexy quarterback playing in the NFL, Jacoby Brissett doesn't tick those boxes, but he's had a good year as an efficient game manager and mover of the football. Granted, he has that run game to lean on and a good offensive line, but the Browns sitting at 3-6 coming into this game, it's not because of Jacoby Brissett or poor offensive play holding them back. A lot of it is due to their defense. Their defense is very bad almost any way you slice it, however you want to look at it. They are susceptible to big runs. They have been all year. They've had injuries on the back end, which has affected their pass coverage and what they're able to do on the back end. So understandable to a degree. But they come into this game 31st in overall defensive DVOA, 26th against the pass, 32nd against the run. The weakness and the vulnerability for this Cleveland Browns team has not been Jacoby Brissett or even necessarily the pass. Oh, awesome. Mr. Richard Haynes, Mr. Burn River Sports on Twitter. Appreciate you stopping by. He will be on later with Mr. Greg Thompson and Aaron Quinn as they dive into some other pieces for this upcoming matchup. But Rich is a huge Browns fan, season ticket holder, and he already saying, gap runs kill him. That's a fact. The Browns, and we're going to show some images later and talk about some pieces. The Browns they had a good defense last year, but they are getting gouged in the run game, specifically with those gap runs. It looks like a parting of the Red Sea at times. They have not been sound structurally, and it's an odd piece because they've got some really good players. Like you think of Myles Garrett, and he's one of the best edges in all of football. I know people are, kind of down on Jadeveon Clowney versus what he could have been versus what he is, but he's still a good edge. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is tremendous, but he's a bit undersized. And then you've got all these pieces on the back end and the secondary. Granted, they've been banged up, but they had a good core coming into this year. They have underachieved a bit on defense. The Browns defense has really been the group that's held this team back. Their run game is stellar, like I mentioned, but Jacoby Brissett has actually been fine. I'm going to show a couple plays tonight of him making some good throws. Again, he's not going to be a top 10 quarterback in the league. He's not this quarterback where you have to completely scheme for and game plan to stop Jacoby Brissett, but he's smart. He understands the offense. He plays within himself and plays within the structure of the offense, and he can get some things done from time to time. And what's also a very, very fun stat, there's 95 players in the NFL, including scrambles. There's 95 players with at least 20 carries or rushes in the NFL this year. Of those 95 players, Jacoby Brissett is first amongst all of them in EPA per rush attempt. He has been very effective when he decides to take off. He's not the most fleet of foot, right? But he can maneuver in the pocket a little bit. And if he escapes, he's run for first downs. He's converted some big moments. He's pulled some athletic maneuvers out of his, butt a little bit here and there when you watch the tape. But this is not a team that is going to just destroy you passing the football, but it's not a passing game that's going to hold this team back. The defense is the reason, a large part of why they are 3-6. But this Browns offense, they have a very dangerous run game, which we know. Also a diverse run game. 45% gap runs coming into this week. That's the third most in the league. 52% zone run rate, which is 29th. But who cares about the 29th piece? I want to focus on that balance, right? Last week, Minnesota came into the game. We knew what Minnesota was going to be on offense. 79% zone run rate, second most in the league. They are a zone running offense. The Browns can beat you in a multitude of ways. It's a testament to their running backs, and it's a testament to their offensive line. Conklin and Wills, who's banged up a bit, and Bitonio and Wyatt Teller, like the usual suspects of tremendous Browns linemen. And they're so versatile up front in how they can beat you. This isn't a siloed running attack. This isn't, and not to say that siloed would be bad, right? It's not, well, all they do is run zone, so they're easy to stop. If you have a great zone attack, you can still be a great run team. Same if you have a great gap scheme. I'm not saying that if you're siloed or skewed heavily towards one, that's bad. But if you can throw rock, paper, and scissors, again, if you can stay versatile, if you can stay multiple in anything that you do, but especially in something as more simplistic as the run game, the Browns are a dangerous group up front. We know this, but it starts with that versatility. Again, 45% gap run rate, 52% zone. They can beat you in a variety of ways. You cannot sit and go, okay, well, we know outside zone is coming. Okay, we know inside zone is coming. They might hit you with duo. They might hit you with inside zone. They might hit you with a counter. They might hit you with power. It might be a pin and pull. It might be an outside zone. There's a variety of things that they can do. They also, so again, third in rushing DVOA, they run into a stacked box, so 8 defenders or more, 40% of the time on the year. That's the fourth most in the entire NFL. So even when teams are stacking the box, daring them to try and run against the heavier box, the Browns are still finding success. And a lot of that is due to, seeing those stacked boxes is because the Browns lean into heavier personnel packages. They have a 38% heavy personnel usage, 26% 12 personnel, 7% 13 personnel, so 3 tight ends, and then 5% 21 personnel, so 2 backs. And then for reference, they have 59% usage rate for 11 personnel. Just some more numbers if you wanted to get a little more intimidated by this Browns running attack. They're second in running back rushing yards on the year with 1,231. The Bills are 30th at 658. The Browns are first in running back rushing yards per game at 136.8. The Bills are 29th at 73.1. The Browns are third in running back yards per attempt at 5.0. The Bills are 16th at 4.6. This is the big one. The Browns are first in yards after contact per attempt amongst running back carries at 3.4. The Bills are 16th at 2.6. We've seen recently the Buffalo Bills miss tackles in the hole and in space. They were sound here. I know it's been a concern the last couple of years, but they've been sound this year against Kansas City, against any of the teams they faced early in the year, even against Hill and Waddle, those speedsters and those burners who are dangerous in space. The Bills are fine in their open field tackling. They have not been against Green Bay, against the Jets, and this past week against the Minnesota Vikings. And this is more than just, well, it's because of Jaquan Johnson. Jordan Poyer was missing tackles left and right in that Green Bay Packers game. This team all of a sudden lost their fundamentals when it came to tackling. And now you're going to play a team that is good in the run game regardless, but you've got 2 running backs. Again, they're first in yards after contact per attempt at 3.4. So they're getting contacted and then they're still gaining an average of 3.4 yards per attempt after they get contacted. That's tremendous. They're 5th in broken tackles plus missed tackles forced per attempt, percentage-wise at 20.2. They're 3rd in running back rushing EPA. They're 5th in running back rushing EPA per attempt. They're 6th in positive play percentage. They are a tremendous unit. But the one I want to focus on, and this is going to lead us right into the film, The Cleveland Browns running game versus 7 defenders or less in the box. The reason I bring that up is because the Buffalo Bills, 90% of the time, are going to give you 7 defenders or less in the box. We know this. The Bills are a too high shell team. What does that mean for those who don't know? They're going to have split safeties on the back end pre-snap. When you've got those 2 safeties back there, again, it's just simple math. If you have more guys on the back end, that's less guys you can commit to the box and commit up front. And that's largely worked for the Buffalo Bills this year. They've been able to fit the run with lighter boxes or with a regular box of 7 or a light box, technically, of 6. But again, the Bills, 90% of the time, are going to have 7 defenders or less in the box. They're 58% of the time, they're going to have 6 or less. 32% of the time, it'll be a 7-man box. So the Cleveland Browns run game versus boxes that have 7 defenders or less, like the Bills play 90% of the time. The Browns run game is first in EPA. It's first in EPA per attempt. It's first in yards per game. It's first in yards after contact per attempt. They're fourth in broken tackle plus missed tackles forced per attempt. They're first in yards, and they're second in first downs. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. This Browns run game against 7 defenders or less. The Bills run defense with 7 defenders or less in the box. Again, a grouping that they use 90% of the time. 58% light box, 32% 7-man box. The Bills run defense with 7 defenders or less in the box. 13th in EPA per attempt. 11th most in terms of yards per game given up. 6th most in terms of yards per attempt given up. 3rd most in terms of yards after contact per attempt at 3.1. And then this is a big one too. Again, remember, brought up those numbers, yards after contact per attempt. The Buffalo Bills with 7 defenders or less in the box, they have the highest broken tackle plus missed tackle percentage per attempt allowed at 16.3, the most in the league. They are missing tackles. And this is a piece I want to dive into quickly. And again, we're going to show it on the film. When you have lighter numbers in the box, your fits have to be on point. Somebody has to win a one-on-one, and you have to tackle. The whole idea is, if you can get penetration, again, the Bills are a one-gapping team. If you can get through, right, and cause havoc, you can create a negative play. Fantastic. If you can't, you have to be sound. And the idea is limit the big play, okay? Take an 8 or a 10-yard gain and hold it to 4 or 6. Take a 15 or a 20-yard gain and hold it to 8 or 10. You do that with tackling. We've seen, and like we're going to see in this episode tonight, the Buffalo Bills have not done that, and those missed tackles have led to big gashing runs, some big-time explosive and home run shots, some just 10, 15, 12 yards, but they have the opportunity to be stopped for 4 or 5 or 6. That's not happening. And again, this speaks to it. When you've got less numbers in the box, you cannot afford to be poor in terms of your technique or your execution. You are at a numbers disadvantage. And if math is not on your side, your execution has to be on point in order to counterbalance that lack of math. Bills haven't done that. Again, the most broken tackle plus missed tackle percentage per attempt from a defensive perspective. Not great. And then 13th in yards and 8th most in terms of first downs given up. The Bills are often in scenarios where they have even bodies in the box in terms of numbers versus blockers, but that means they're going to be set one gap short. So again, I want to say that again. The Bills are often in scenarios defensively where they have even bodies in the box in terms of defenders in the box versus blockers. So think you've got 7 defenders in the box versus 7 blockers in the box for the offense, right? And so you think, okay, we're even on bodies. That's good. It can be, but you're short one gap. There's always one more gap on the offensive line than there are blockers. So say you've got your 5 offensive linemen and you've got 2 tight ends. Right? Say they're all on the line. So you've got 7 on the line. That means there are 8 gaps. There's 8 gaps. So if you think about it, think of it from outside the left tackle, or let's say there's a tight end on each side of each tackle. So all the way to the outside, to the left shoulder of the tackle, of the tight end to the left, all the way outside the right shoulder of the tight end to the right. All those gaps in between. If there's 7 men on the line, that means there's 8 gaps. So if you have 7 bodies on defense in the box, you're even on bodies, but you're short a gap. You've only got 7 defenders for 8 gaps. So if you're short a gap, that means someone has to beat their man one-on-one and make a play and gum up the works to the point that a non-box defender can fill and make the tackle, which we see all the time. You've seen Damar Hamlin do it to a tremendous degree since coming in. You've seen Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde do it regularly. Majority of the time it's a safety or it can be a corner. You got to gum up the works. Or like we've seen You slash and you shoot the gap like Ed Oliver or Daquan Jones or Von Miller, and you make a tackle in the backfield. That's a bit of the live by the sword, die by the sword nature of this Buffalo Bills run defense. That's why you're seeing what you're seeing. They'll make a tackle in the backfield, and all of a sudden it's 2nd and 13 or 2nd and 4, right? Or they can get gashed. I'm sorry, it's 2nd and 14 or 2nd and 13, something like that, when they make the tackle in the backfield on first down. Or it can be 2nd and 4 or 2nd and 3 or 2nd and 2 because they got gouged for 6, 7, 8 yards. Or it's another 1st and 10 because the running back rattled off a 12, 13-yard gain. That is how the Bills operate. They live in these two high shells, again, roughly 70% of the time, which is 4th most in the league. This allows them to disguise coverages, maintain leverage horizontally, change the pre to post snap picture against the quarterback, and limit explosives in the passing game. All of which are tremendously important in today's NFL, given the nature of how offenses are built and how they attack. Defenses want to limit explosive plays for the offense through the passing game. That's the whole reason behind this too high revolution. Okay, that's why all these teams are going with more too high coverages post snap, more too high shells pre snap. They're trying to keep everything in front of them, put a top or a cap on the offense, and play top down. But despite being a passing league, how you fit the run determines what coverages you play on the back end. Again, playing those too high shells and continuously dropping 7 into coverage, it gives you the numbers advantage into coverage, but it's all only possible if your lighter fronts can fit the run. If you can't, you'll have to spin a safety down pre-snap or post-snap, and either way, you're tipping your hand / limiting yourself in coverage or having to commit more to the run and thus making yourself vulnerable to the pass and those explosives. The Bills don't want to live in that world. The Bills are okay saying, you know what? Fine, run it at us for 6, 7 yards a clip, because when it comes down to the red zone, we're gonna bend, but don't break. We're going to clamp down and we're going to hold you to 3, or we're going to drive you out and force a stop somehow, some way. Or go ahead and keep running it. We're going to bet that we can use our one gap penetrating front to get in the backfield and set you up for a 2nd and long or keep you in 3rd and long, right? The Bills have lived in this too high shell world because they've been able on the year to fit the run with 6 or 7 and either get stops or mitigate those big runs. Then they can keep an 8-yard run to 4 or 6 or a 15-yard run to 8 or 10. They've done that this year with better defensive line play, especially on the interior, sound run fits, and very sound tackling. But what we're seeing these past several weeks is less winning in terms of those one-on-ones up front and poor tackling. The 81-yard touchdown for Dalvin Cook is a good example. We're going to break that down here in just a minute. And again, the Bills are a one gap penetrating defense, which is why you see them often generating tackles for loss and negative plays versus the run. Live by the sword, die by the sword. They can generate a tackle for a loss, or they can get gouged. And they're betting on themselves winning enough, generating negative plays enough to put offenses in enough 2nd and longs or 3rd and longs, and then have their coverage numbers win out, give them the advantage, and get the offense off the field, and give the ball back to Josh Allen and the defense. That is the nature and essence of who this Buffalo Bills defense has been. I'm going to go to some comments here. Air Allen said, "Ant, you're stressing me out, especially with the snow coming." The snow is a huge variable, right? Like if it's a weather game, whether it's windy or snowy, and the game is like, okay, who can run the ball better? It's actually going to be very interesting because, again, the Browns' run offense is tremendous. Their run defense is poor. And the Bills' run defense has been better. We'll see what they do in this game, which we're going to dive into what they potentially do in a minute with the film in terms of slowing that down. It's kind of a strength for the Browns going up against their biggest weakness. The Browns are great at running the ball. They're horrible at stopping it. The Buffalo Bills defense has been okay to good stopping the run, but they haven't committed to running it on offense, and they've had ups and downs in terms of their consistency, but also their execution. Comedian Mo Brown coming in and saying moving to Detroit. I don't think it's going to get moved, especially with the Bills playing on Thanksgiving, but we'll see. Chris coming in. Thank you for being here, Chris. Chris says the over-under for this game is currently 41.5. Seems like it's lower than usual because of the snowstorm, but I think the field will be clear for the game. I'm slamming the over. Am I crazy? The most recent reports I've read, for those who are very concerned about the weather, Buffalo's supposed to get slammed starting tomorrow night all the way through Friday and a little bit into Saturday. The snow is supposed to dissipate Saturday and not really be snowing for game time. So it's just a matter of what kind of state is the stadium in come game time and the surrounding roads and travel for everyone. I don't think this is going to be a snow-filled game. It's going to be a snow-filled couple of days leading up to it. some pieces. And Royce says, so you're basically saying we suck at stopping the run. No. I see your smiley face, your smirky face. No. The Bills, it's a lot of everything. It's the nature of who they are on defense. Again, we're going to look into it, but it's live by the sword, die by the sword. The Bills are aiming to either get a tackle for a loss or they're going to get gouged. And they're playing the odds and the probabilities and saying you're either not going to keep running it on us because it's a pass-first league, or eventually we're going to guess right, or somebody's going to make a play and we're going to create a negative play for you, put you behind the sticks, and force you into passing the football where we have the advantage, where we can drop 7 into coverage, only rush 4, play all the games and coverages we want on the back end, and then get you off the field. It's a risk reward, live by the sword, die by the sword type of defense, but that's who they are. They've gotten got these past several weeks. Some because of bad luck, some because of misexecution, but we're going to dive into it in this piece. Oh, I like where Charles' head is at. He says, Frazier will have us prepared with some heavy packages, bare fronts, etc. Keep them guessing. I'd be interested to see if they started to run more bare fronts and really committed to, more into the box, but we will see. We will see. Oh, Stephen Burns coming in and saying the Bills are 4-0 with Poyer. That feels like something we need to talk about. Points per game with Poyer is 14.9. Without is 18.4. Close in terms of points per game. I will say he makes a tremendous difference, but I know what you meant, Stephen. He says points per game against. I know what you meant, but I appreciate you clarifying. Yeah, Poyer makes a huge difference for this defense. I've said it the past several years. The most important pieces for the Buffalo Bills defense are Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer in terms of what they allow this defense to do. And the points per game isn't too different, but I mean, again, from a record perspective, I mean, they easily should have, not easily, but they realistically could have had a win against the Jets without Poyer and a win against Minnesota. So a lot of pieces. You know what? Let's dive into the film, shall we? And take a look at some pieces in relation to this Buffalo Bills versus Cleveland Browns run game matchup, the most important matchup of the week. I'm going to share my screen here and let's dive right into these pieces here, shall we? Oh, this Nick Chubb piece is going to be for later, but let's go to Minnesota Vikings game. So this is the game film that, myself and Eric and Kendall really study and break down. Also, shout out to Adam, new member of the Cover One team. He's the reason you see all this charting down here in terms of play type, personnel, player name, all of those pieces. He's been a tremendous asset to this team. The first play we're going to dive into, potentially may want to avert your eyes, is the 81-yard touchdown for the Minnesota Vikings. The Dalvin Cook 81-yard run. So again, the first piece I want to bring up, and I have it, keyed up there at the top. You have 7 blockers on the line versus 7 in the box, right? And kind of put that in perspective. Take a look at the view, right? So 1 blocker, you can't see him behind Von Miller, but you got 1 for Minnesota, 2. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the center, 6, and 7. Again, if you're looking at the box perspective for the defense, 1, Dotson's 2, Miller's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we go back to the wide zone. If you go back to the wide sideline angle, you can see that Hamlin has to come from depth. You see Dane Jackson technically could fit into the box if needed, but what you really have from a core piece is 7-on-7. And excellent comment here from Charles saying we missed Edmonds in the second half versus the Vikings. Yes, we most definitely did. Also, apologies if I don't get to comments right away as we go through here because I'm looking at the film and kind of bringing things through, but I appreciate you folks. Keep the comments flowing. So let's look at this run, right? I'm going to let it play. And if you notice, what do you notice on this side, right? Watch how much space there is on that right side of the defense. We'll go in slow-mo. Look at all the space. DeMar Hamlin has to come down and fill. He gets cracked. Christian Benford misses the tackle. Dalvin Cook is off to the races. Lewis doesn't take a great angle. Touchdown. I'm going to go from the end zone angle again. So I have the arrows drawn up here for the run fits for this team. So if you notice, again, you've got 7 blockers versus 7 in the box, which means from a box perspective, again, from just a box perspective, these defenders here in the box, not including Dane Jackson down here, these defenders in the box, they are outgapped. They only have 7 defenders in the box to cover 8 gaps, which means, like I have highlighted here, DeMar Hamlin down here, squiggly. DeMar Hamlin down here is part of the run fit. But again, as you see from the sideline angle, he's got to come from depth, which is fine. DeMar Hamlin is good at coming from depth and making tackles. Poyer is great at it. Micah Hyde has been great at it. It is a necessary piece for Buffalo Bills safeties in this defense to come from depth and make tackles and fit the run. So you've got Hamlin coming from depth, which is fine. But as I have highlighted here at the top with the words, you see, so this picture is highlighting the run fits after the Bills defense shifts. Milano's going to shift over. Hamlin has to fill. But the key piece is Hamlin gets cracked by Justin Jefferson on the side. This puts Dalvin Cook in a one-on-one situation with Christian Benford. So let's watch it. Hamlin comes forward. Again, he's fitting the run. I'm going to go back to the original part, check the arrows. This is where all the Bills defenders are going. You can see gap covered, gap covered, gap covered, gap, gap, gap. Epinesa is going outside the tackle. Hamlin has to fill in this B gap, which he does, right? Gap sound, here you go. But there's Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson comes from the side, cracks Hamlin. So now you've got a one-on-one scenario with Dalvin Cook. Christian Benford, who has been a very sound tackler throughout the entire year. I can't stress that enough. Preseason, regular season, he has been a sound tackler against running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. He just misses here. And if you're playing with a 7-man box and you're playing with a 2-high shell, like the Bills are here pre-snap, you can't afford to miss these tackles. If we look at it from the sideline angle, right where Benford has the opportunity to make this tackle, worst case scenario, this is about a 5-yard gain. Or even if he slows him down a little bit, creates a better angle, possibility, opportunity for Cam Lewis to come down. Maybe Dodson catches him from behind. But either way, the opportunity for Benford to make this play, he can stop this to a 5-6 yard gain, maybe even 7 roughly if Cook falls forward. Instead, it's an 81-yard touchdown because Christian Benford misses this tackle. I hate, signaling him or calling him out here, I should say, or singling him out. I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but that's what breaks this play. And then Cam Lewis takes a poor angle. He gets beat and Dalvin Cook takes it to the house. This is what those pieces are, right? The Bills want to live in this world right here. Everything you're seeing in this sideline angle is what the Bills want to be. Again, like I said, 90% of the time, they have 7 defenders or less in the box. 58% of the time, they have 6 or less. 32% of the time, it's 7. So add it up all together, 90% of the time, they have 7 defenders or less in the box. This is who they want to be, and that's fine, which means in order to stop these runs from gashing you, either somebody has to win up front or you have to make open field tackles or tackles in the hole. On this play, nobody wins up front, okay? And they do later at some point. You get a great double team here on Tim Settle. You get that piece from Minnesota to occupy Settle. You get a nice climb here to the second level on Matt Milano. Boom. Hamlin thinks he has a one-on-one stop in the hole. He gets hit. This is the defense. This is the risk reward. And the Bills, for the most part in the year, have been able to come up and make these tackles. And okay, it's 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, live to fight another day. And when you don't execute in the open field tackling piece, a running back as good as Dalvin Cook with that home run threat ability, just like Nick Chubb, and to a degree Kareem Hunt as well, can house it for you. Again, just to wrap it home or drive it home for this play, this is who the Bills are. Lighter boxes or regular boxes in terms of 7-man versus 6. They want to fit the run with these lighter to regular boxes, and they expect their safeties to come and make plays from depth, right? And who knows, maybe Hamlin comes into the box here, and maybe if Jefferson doesn't crack on him, maybe he still misses the tackle and Cook houses it in some other way. But the point is that person coming up to fill has to make the tackle, right? Either somebody has to win up front in the initial run fit or somebody from the 2nd or 3rd level has to make the tackle, limit the big gain. The Bills didn't, and all of a sudden you got a house call here for the Minnesota Vikings, and a big one as it was 27-10 at this point, and all of a sudden it makes it 27-17 in the blink of an eye. Very disheartening and disappointing there for the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to let it run one more time as we kind of go through here. Again, you see all the run. Benford's got to make this tackle. He doesn't. It's a house call. Disappointing and unfortunate to a degree, but that's the nature of the piece here. Let's go to our next play. Is a kind of maneuver here. Let's go to Okay, I'm going to go to another play here. This is another successful run for the Minnesota Vikings. So again, I'm calling it out here from the sideline angle, but again, you have another play where you've got 7 in the box. for the Buffalo Bills defense versus 7 blockers for the Minnesota Vikings. What do we keep talking about? If you're even on bodies, that's cool, but you're short 1 gap. If you've got 7 in the box versus 7 blockers, that means you've only got 7 defenders for 8 gaps. And to drill that home, we'll go to the end zone angle here, because let's look at it. 1 gap, 2 gaps, 3 gaps, 4 gaps, 5 gaps, 6 gaps, 7 gaps, 8 gaps, right? And the Bills up front, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They can only fit 7 gaps with their box defenders because they've only got 7 in the box, which means a safety has to come from depth and has to make a play or a corner, depending on what kind of blocks you get on the back end. I'm going to let this run a bit here in slow-mo. What you're going to see on this play, Boogie Basham's alignment at the bottom of the screen and his get-off doesn't help him too much. You can see as Kirk Cousins is snapping this ball, Basham is still in his stance, basically, even as the rest of the Bills front is kind of getting off to attack this Minnesota front. So you get Basham getting washed a little bit, and safety has to come from depth, make a play. But again, nobody wins up front. And when you're playing, 7-on-7 or 8-on-8 or 6-on-6 in the box, whatever, if you're even on bodies, somebody has to win up front. Also, what's a good piece on this one? Taron Johnson here. This is good from Minnesota, bad for the Bills. Taron Johnson has the tight end here on this play, right? What the tight end does is he's going to release and run right at Taron Johnson. So as far as Taron's concerned, based on his responsibility and because he's playing pass first, the way the tight end releases, it could be a run or it could be a pass. This helps create displacement and a lane for Dalvin Cook to run through. And let's take a peek at what happens on this play. So watch the tight end. The tight end releases downfield. Taron Johnson is playing pass first. He gets contacted by the tight end about 5 yards downfield. You see this nice big lane for Dalvin Cook to run through and attack. And we'll keep watching it here from this sideline angle. What's actually nice on this play, this is what needs to happen for the Buffalo Bills, right? This is already going to be a first down run. This is a win for Minnesota. Good run. You're going to get probably 7, 8, 9, or 10, some piece like that for this team. Good for them. But what Taron Johnson does and what Christian Benford does downfield, both of these guys are able to force and box and pen Dalvin Cook in downfield and limit this to just a good gain, right? They make the tackle and they hold this to a 10-yard gain. They're able to force that in. Let's look at it from the end zone angle. Again, something we didn't see on the previous play. Benford misses that tackle. Nobody forces and kind of boxes Cook in. He's able to get outside and get to the end zone. Again, wanted to highlight the box alignment. You see all the Bills defenders here. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 versus the 8 gaps like we broke down and talked about. Let's watch the run. Again, if you're even on bodies, somebody has to win up front. Nobody does here for the Bills. Everybody gets gummed up on the inside. There's nobody creating any displacement, nobody really creating any push. Boogie Basham gets washed down by the double team here on the outside, and Cook's going to get the ball. I'm actually surprised. I know no one ever wants to say, hey, giving up a 10-yard gain is good. But considering what happened on this play, it's actually kind of decent. Look at this lane for Dalvin Cook. He almost has the world as his oyster at this point. Hamlin is coming down to fit the run from depth, but he's got to figure out, where do I go into? Because Cook has all these options. All of a sudden, it's a little complicated for DeMar Hamlin. And as Cook continues to go forward, again, watch Johnson attacks the outside. Benford comes in here as well. And you get them forcing Dalvin Cook back inside towards the pursuit. Runs through his man, gets a couple yards after contact. But again, the Bills are able to stop it, prevent the house call, and just limit this to an explosive run. And as Charles says, the first contact is 7 yards upfield. That's correct. We'll look at it from a sideline perspective. Boom. Look at the wall that's created here against the defenders on the defensive line. That's beautiful if you're the Minnesota Vikings. And then because Taron Johnson has to, play pass first against this tight end, and the way the tight end attacks him, he creates natural displacement against Taron Johnson. And this alley is beautiful. You get a guy coming off the double team here to pick up Tyrell Dodson. Again, show that piece again. Here's the double team on the D line on Basham. Comes off his man, picks up Dodson. It's good zone blocking. It's good execution, good chemistry, focusing on your double teams, climbing to the second level. Sometimes you got to tip your cap, right? The Bills' alignment, like I mentioned, did not help them. Basham is kicked inside. This creates an easy opportunity to kind of wall him off and seal, which happens on this play. And then you add that with Taron Johnson backing up on the snap and playing pass first. And all of a sudden, again, like Charles mentioned, first contact is about 7 yards downfield, and you've got this big alley and you've got this big lane. Again, this is who the Bills are. And sometimes it works because somebody makes a play, somebody knifes into the backfield, somebody beats their man, or they slant on the run and force the cutback, and Milano loops in and makes a play, and you get some kind of great play or some kind of great action because of their aggressive, penetrating, one-gap nature. Other times, your alignment isn't right, your front isn't right, you get caught, and you get gouged. But the important thing, again, is bend but don't break, limit what you can, hold it to a 10-yard gain, which the Buffalo Bills do on this play, something they did not do on the first play. Now, let's look at a positive play for the Buffalo Bills defense. This is a 3rd and 5. I know it says 3rd and 4 here in the notes if you're watching there, but 3rd and 5 for the Buffalo Bills. This is a beautiful play by Ed Oliver. He anchors and he wins. You're going to see a crack block on DeMar Hamlin, like we saw a couple other times as well. And the idea here is they're going to try and make the corner on that side tackle Dalvin Cook one-on-one. Let's look at it from the end zone angle. Again, this time the Bills have the advantage in terms of the box, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the offensive line for the Minnesota Vikings. 5 linemen, 1 tight end. How many defenders in the box? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've got 7 versus 6 in favor of the Buffalo Bills, which means all 7 gaps are accounted for. All 7 gaps have an assignment in terms of run fit. But what the Vikings do on this play, they don't run a zone run. They pull the guard from the left side, number 72, Ezra Cleveland. They're going to pull him. And anytime you have a gap run, it's called a gap run. One, because the aim point is a gap. It's designed for the running back to run through this hole or this gap. But also, you're moving gaps anytime you pull 1 offensive lineman, 2 offensive linemen, anything. So when the Vikings pull number 72, Ezra Cleveland, when they pull him from the left and bring him to the right, what they are doing, you're taking a gap from the left and you're adding a gap to the right side, and the Bills have to adjust. Now, again, what have we talked about? Even if numbers aren't even, you still got to win up front, but even more so if you have even bodies. This time the Bills have the advantage from a gap coverage perspective, but let's watch Ed Oliver right here. I'm going to circle him with this big, messy yellow circle. Let's watch Ed Oliver on this play. Ed Oliver is going to get hit with this double team by the Minnesota Vikings. Watch him drop his knee. Drop that knee right there. Again, let's go back. Watch it. Watch him anchor down. Drop this knee and effectively split the double team because the right tackle has to climb to the second level to pick up Dodson. So he's going to leave Oliver, which is going to put Oliver one-on-one with Ed Ingram. So Oliver anchors. He drops that knee so he can withstand the double team and not get pushed downfield too much and not give up any displacement. Comes out of it, gets free, and makes a tackle in the backfield. Again, the risk reward of this Buffalo Bills defense in terms of how they like to attack, right? That one gap penetrating style. Okay. If Ed Oliver gets pinned or if he gets reached on this block, right? Like let's let it play here. As Oliver comes through, if Ingram is here and he's able to wall off, if they literally switch positions and this is Oliver instead, and he's sealed off from the inside, all of a sudden, Dalvin Cook has a very nice angle and opportunity to attack because, again, when Minnesota pulled this guard, they changed the gaps. And then now you've got bodies on this side where the run is not going, and you now have a gap advantage and numbers advantage from a mathematical perspective on the right side. But that all is moot because Ed Oliver wins. Sometimes you just have to win up front. And the Bills will have that in spades. We've seen Daquan Jones do it a ton this year. We've seen Ed Oliver do it. We've seen Von Miller do it. We've seen AJ Epinesa do it. We've seen Basham do it. We've seen Greg Rousseau do it a lot. That's a huge piece for this game. Greg Rousseau is really a core piece of this run defense with his length, his strength, his size, what he's able to do on the edge, but also how he understands how to fit gaps. He's also got the ability to play a bit of a gap and a half type of responsibility, much like Daquan Jones does at times this year. But you're seeing someone win up front and just wrecks the whole play. That's what you get from Ed Oliver on this play. If Ed gets pinned or gets reached, this run can be a problem, again, because they've added a gap to that right side. So, and when you take that piece, again, let's take the crack piece here, right? Watch Thielen, again, similar to the Dalvin Cook touchdown run that we led off with in this film breakdown. Thielen is eyeing up DeMar Hamlin. Why? Because in theory, it's a better matchup to put a running back one-on-one with a corner. So they want Dalvin Cook one-on-one with Christian Benford, and they're going to take their chances. Miller strings it out. Ed Oliver makes a play inside. And then we never even get to that part, right? We never even get to see that one-on-one matchup if you're Minnesota or the Buffalo Bills, because Ed Oliver made a play. Again, kudos to Ed Oliver. See what can happen when someone, even just one person, can win up front, beat their man, it can blow up the whole play. Okay, now we're going to the let's go to the next play here in this series. We are going to go to, again, another play. The Buffalo Bills, what do? They win up front, and it can change everything. Let's go to the sideline angle again. Let's count numbers here. From a numbers perspective, I'm going to count Dane Jackson here as a box defender, and I'll show you why. Because as you look from the sideline angle, you're going to get motion here from KJ Osborne, which is something teams have been doing a lot to the Buffalo Bills lately, and we'll show you. Look at them again. Watch Osborne go, and what do the Buffalo Bills do? You see how they push? This is a common piece for this defense. Watch Dodson, watch Milano. Watch both these guys when they see that motion from KJ Osborne. They push. Get that motion, they push. So we'll look at it from the end zone angle now. This is right as that motion. The blur here is KJ Osborne. If you see, Matt Milano got pulled from the box. Okay? So now, if you're the Bills, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to count Taron Johnson here as 7. So you've got 7 in the box now because Milano has been pulled out. And you've got 7 in the box. Again, I'm going to keep drilling it home. 7 in the box against how many linemen? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 is the center. 6, 7. 7 on 7. Even from a bodies perspective, short from a gap perspective, because 7 on the line means, lo and behold, there's 8 gaps. So they're down a gap. They're short a gap. They've only got 7 defenders in the box because Milano has been pulled out, but it's okay on this play. And why is it okay? Because Ed Oliver right here and Daquan Jones right here, both of them win. You're going to see Daquan Jones slant as I really make an absolute mess out of this. I don't know who paints like this. This is like a Warhol or a Picasso. I don't know, but it's actually kind of fun. I might paint after this, and I don't paint. This is crazy. What a night. You're going to see Daquan Jones slant on this play, and you're going to watch Ed Oliver beat his man. Again, what did we talk about earlier? It's okay if you're short a gap. It's okay if it's just even bodies on even bodies. Someone has to make a play. If they don't, you try to limit and contain and stifle the run as much as possible and limit a 10-yard gain to a 4 or 5 or 6-yard gain, or a 15-yard gain to a 10 or an 8-yard gain, or you win up front and you blow the play up. That's what happens. We're going to look at it from the sideline angle first. Here's Daquan Jones. Here's Ed Oliver. Really beautiful play from these two guys. Let's watch. We get the motion. So this is a split zone run from the Minnesota Vikings. You're going to watch the tight end here. This guy, he's going to want to come across the line of scrimmage. Well, behind the line of scrimmage, I should say. But Ed Oliver, with that get off, look at that. This ball is just snapped. Look where Ed Oliver is. Look how far upfield he is. And also, look at the leverage that he has. Low man wins. It's a proverbial statement that is very true for football time and time again. Low man wins. Look at the leverage he's playing with. He's underneath his man. He's got a strong, quick get off. So he established first touch, right? And he's playing with leverage. He's going to win this rep. He drives his man back so far that it completely jacks up the tight end who's trying to come across on this flow and on this sift block for the split zone. Drives the man back, gums up the works, gets right into the backfield against Dalvin Cook. Okay? We'll go back to here. See it again in real time. Bang. And then the Bills defense rallies and tackles. So again, a situation much like we saw earlier where it was 7-on-7, but the Bills lost. Why? Because they had their defender coming from the second level. He got cracked. Corner had to make a one-on-one tackle. Corner didn't. Touchdown. House call for Dalvin Cook. Also, nobody won their one-on-one matchup or one-on-two matchup up front. That's not what happens on this play. Again, Ed Oliver jacking up Ezra Cleveland, drives him right back into the tight end, right into Dalvin Cook, and you watch the Bills defense rally and tackle the rest of this play. Also keep an eye again on Daquan Jones. Watch him slant on the snap. Ingram actually does a pretty good job here, right? Ingram is going to reach him and try and prevent him and wall him off there. It's actually pretty good. Ingram, who's had a rough year from a pass protection standpoint, but he's been better against the run. But watch how Daquan Jones keeps driving. He keeps working, stops, gets an eye on, but then keeps working, rally, tackle. But again, it all starts with Ed Oliver blowing this play up right here. So you can be okay if you're even on numbers and you're short a gap. Somebody just has to win up front. That's what you need, right? Whether they just make the better play, they make the right read, they guess right, or you just have the better guy and the better matchup. That's going to happen from time to time there. Okay, let's go to our next play. Again, shout out to Ed Oliver. I know Ed Oliver's come under fire a little bit lately from a lot of Bills fans. I'm seeing a lot on Twitter. Also seeing it, I saw in the film room last week, just a couple comments here and there about how he's a bust or not playing well. And again, I know in a game where the Bills got gouged a bunch, you wouldn't say like, oh, someone on the defensive line had a really good game. Ed Oliver made a bunch of plays in this game. Another way that you can potentially affect the run is with run blitzes. And I need to find that play. Here we go. So, simple play. Nothing really crazy to set up. All you need to focus on is where Dane Jackson is. Dane Jackson, this corner down here, the corner into the boundary. The reason it's called that, just in case people don't know, ball is on this hash. So this is into the boundary. This wide side where all the space is, this would be into the field. Just in case people don't know that verbiage. Educate a little bit here. So Dane Jackson, nothing crazy. This is just a run blitz. He's lined up, head up over Adam Thielen on the snap. He triggers, blitzes. Tackle on the backfield, -6. The Bills have done this from time to time, right? I want to say that because now you might say, like, why don't the Bills do this more? Why don't the Bills run blitz more? They have. But at times, it'll come on the wrong side of the run. So you saw how well this run blitz worked, right? This is beautiful. Dane Jackson blitzes, comes in scot-free, makes a one-on-one tackle in the backfield, -6. Imagine what this run looks like if Christian Benford is the one that's blitzing. Or if this run goes to the field side instead of the boundary side. Now all of a sudden you're bringing the blitz from this side, but the run isn't going to this side. Now you might, if you're really looking at a glass half empty, you might look and say, well, you know what? They should have that scouted. They should know. They should call the blitz into the right part of the formation at the right time in the right scenario, so on and so forth. Cool. That doesn't happen a lot of time, right? You got opponents on the other side and the coaching staff and players who are also good at their jobs, who are also trying to beat you in the same way that you are trying to beat them, right? So this play works out beautifully. But if it was called from the other side, or again, if this run went to the other side, if it went to the field side instead of into the boundary, all of a sudden you might not have that advantage, right? And that's what happened to the Bills at times. There were times in this game, again, it's not in this play, but you'll watch, again, it's not this play, I'm just using it as an example. You'll have times where DeMar Hamlin's going to blitz, right? And he's looking to create a play, and he comes down, he times it, and he comes right off the edge, but the run comes over here. And so you blitz to the wrong side. You got. It happens, right? This time, it doesn't happen. You get a perfect call at the perfect time, executed well. Dane Jackson run blitz into the backfield. Nice tackle, right? Very good piece from the Buffalo Bills there. So I'm going to stop the screen share for a minute. Want to grab some comments here coming from the chat. Oh, I like Autumn with the little note taken. Appreciate you. Greasy Fight says, wow, surgical analysis. I think you mean this towards me, and I hope you do, because that's a tremendous compliment, so I appreciate you. Roy says, how do you feel about Ed Oliver's play overall this season? I feel good about it. I think a lot of his play obviously was tied into the fact. Also, we have more film coming. I don't want anybody to think that we don't, but I just wanted to grab some questions from the chat and some engagement pieces here. We know Ed Oliver got banged up with his ankle against the Rams, and that affected his playing time the next couple of weeks. I also think that affected how he came back as well. Like they eased him back in. You didn't want to re-aggravate that injury or put too much onto him too early. And so you've seen him kind of work his way back in terms of snap share and responsibility and things. But again, I didn't cherry pick those plays that we just went through to show the good ones of Ed Oliver. It just happened to be that, someone who was winning up front and blowing up run plays was Ed Oliver. And he had a couple plays like that in the past as well, and a couple other run stops throughout the rest of the game. So I think he's had a good year overall. I know there was more hype, I should say, coming into his, evaluation this year with the year he had last year, not from a raw, metrics perspective, but he had a great year last year on tape in a variety of ways. He was a game wrecker. And I think people maybe had more expectations. I think he's had a good year, right? Now, if you're trying to quantify it monetarily in terms of what they should sign him to an extension for, I'm not going to go into that right now, but I think he's had a good year. Again, the injury loomed large early for him, but now that he's gotten back into the rotation and has gotten healthier, I think you can see, he's back to being more of a playmaker here. Ned talks about Jason asking a question. Dotson versus Bernard. Why? Dotson a better tackler? Oh, and there's a question from Jason. Jason says, do you think there's any specific, one, shout out to Ned for pointing me toward Jason's question. And then Jason saying, do you think there's any specific reason that Dodson went in for Edmonds instead of Bernard? I think from a responsibility piece, I think maybe they trusted Dodson more from a run fit perspective. A bigger body type, more experienced, somebody who's more comfortable, again, from a frame standpoint and mental standpoint and physicality perspective, playing more centralized like Tremaine Edmonds does versus Terrell Bernard occupying the Matt Milano role against the Jets the week before. Bernard's another one I heard a lot of flack going his way after the Jets game, but in watching the tape, I thought he was fine. He was violent at the point of attack. He was attacking shoulders, trying to make plays. He had a couple good plays in the hole, a couple good plays in the open field. I don't know that I'm going to go as far as to say that I wish I would have seen Bernard over Dodson once Edmonds went out. But I'll tell you from a passing perspective, what the Bills defense was doing in the first half against Minnesota, they're doing a lot of pattern matching. And Tremaine Edmonds is tremendous at that, especially this year. I broke down a lot of those clips of him doing it against Minnesota on Twitter. And you're just watching him lock down KJ Osborne, Adam Thielen, TJ Hawkinson, vertically, intermediate, short, little hook routes, little hitch routes. Edmonds was owning everything. Once Dodson went in, that changed the coverage plan for the Buffalo Bills. You saw more traditional zone coverage and, drop zone or country zone than you did matching. Terrell Bernard is a good matching linebacker. Granted, he's limited athletically, but he's a much better match linebacker in terms of coverage than Terrell Dodson is. I would have liked to see Bernard get more burn because of that match perspective and piece for this Buffalo Bills defense. He did not. But I think they went with Dodson for more of a thumping presence because he's used to being in the middle more. And with Edmonds being out, that, granted, he and Milano are interchangeable to a degree in terms of where they align or what they do. I don't mean they're the same player or even used in the same way necessarily. But I think they went with Dodson because of his frame, his experience, and the physicality he brings potentially to the middle of the field. But I would have liked to see Bernard from a coverage perspective in terms of what he was able to do. But unfortunately, we did not. Another comment here from Jason. Yeah, Jason said it would have been Groot there instead of Epinesa if Groot was healthy. I feel like those are the circumstances. Groot gets off his block and makes a play. Not that Epinesa did anything specifically bad. Yeah, you're referencing that first one from Dalvin Cook where Epinesa gets upfield, if that's the one you're referencing. Also, just from a size perspective, like Groot is huge. It's easier, right, to like get upfield and recognize what's going on and be like, oh, let me get back because I'm like 6'6" or 7 and I have the wingspan of literally a tree. So it's easier for me to cover ground and cover space and play a gap and a half. I think, again, I know, and I'm included in this, like I wanted more from Gregory Rousseau this year from a pass rush perspective, and I think he showed it before he got hurt. But his run defense is hugely important. I also think, too, let's tie it back to the week before, right? He didn't really play the second half against the Jets. He wasn't in it all on that fourth quarter end of drive for the Jets where they ran it down the Bills' throat, right? So we've seen back-to-back games where the run defense has been susceptible and vulnerable in certain areas. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we saw that. And Gregory Rousseau has been absent from the lineup. I also don't think it's a coincidence that we saw it against Minnesota and saw what they did in the second half, and Tremaine Edmonds wasn't in there. Awesome comment from Charles saying, we need Daquan Jones this game, not to make tackles, but occupy multiple linemen so others can make plays. 100%. Absolutely, Charles. I like where your head is at. So we showed some Bills run defense pieces, right? We showed and talked about who they are, what they want to be, light boxes, regular boxes, winning up front, having to come from depth, making open field tackles. We talked about the metrics of their matchup against the Cleveland Browns. Now let's go into some Cleveland Browns tape and just really see, how good and potentially fearsome this group can be here. So let's share the screen again for you folks here on the show. Boom. So this one, nothing crazy from a scheme perspective. This is just Nick Chubb being terrifying, I guess, if you're an opponent. Let's just watch Nick Chubb on this run. Okay, here we go. Oh, I got to make a play. No, I'm going to break that tackle. No, I'm going to juke that guy. I'm going to break that tackle. I'm going to get upfield. Oh, someone has an angle. Nope, I'm going to cut back. Oh, someone can make the tackle here. Oh, that's Khalil Mack. No, I'm just going to stiff arm touchdown. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. This is a running back who has the ability to play the scheme, play above the scheme. That's why I labeled it here, right? This isn't horrible run defense. It's poor tackling from the Chargers, but it's not horrible run defense, right? So on the snap, you get penetration. Tranquil right here shoots the gap, right? Shoots the gap, gets in the backfield, can't make the play. He's boxed in. Chubb is boxed in. There's nowhere to go. Doesn't matter. This is Derwin James, one of legitimately not just one of the best safeties in the NFL, one of the best defenders in the entire NFL. Okay? Let's go back a little bit. Here he is, Mr. Derwin James. In the hole, not even in open space, just completely whiffs. Just completely whiffs on this tackle. Again, this isn't horrible scheme. This isn't horrible structure from the Chargers. They just don't execute individually. Broken tackle, broken tackle, broken tackle. And then once he gets in the open field, home run threat ability, cuts back on Asante Samuel. Good job by Peoples-Jones getting downfield, providing some help. All their receivers are committed to blocking, especially Peoples-Jones. Khalil Mack is trying to run it down. He's big. He's strong. He's a tremendous defender, former, defensive player of the year. Doesn't matter, right? It's so terrifying with what the Browns can do with Nick Chubb and with Kareem Hunt. And again, I wanted to lead off with this play because like I mentioned earlier, as we start to move forward here on this play, and I'm going to pause it right here. Like I mentioned in some of my notes earlier, again, the Buffalo Bills, when they've been tackling poor over the last several weeks, right? But if you're looking at it from a box count perspective, when they need it most, right? You always need to be a good tackling team, but especially if you're going to play with lighter boxes. And when the Bills have 7 defenders or less in the box, they have the highest broken tackle plus missed tackle percentage allowed in the NFL. And then the Browns, their running game versus boxes of 7 defenders or less are first in yards after contact per attempt, and they're 4th in broken tackle plus missed tackle percentage force. So good for them, right? And here's an example why. Watch Tranquil. Here he is, number 49. Shoots the gap. Not fast enough to cut the angle, but still has a shot. Chubb runs right through the legs. If you told someone, right here on this play, look at all the defenders. Derwin James, maybe he could have taken more of an angle. Well, 1, he could have just made the tackle. But 2, maybe James can take more of an angle, kind of force this run back inside. But if you told someone this play ends up in a house call for Nick Chubb, I think people would be like, what? How does this not get tackled? Even if this isn't Derwin James, even if this is just average NFL players, he's kind of penned in. But the short area agility to make Derwin James miss in a phone booth, then he bounces off contact, and then the burst to get upfield. The Buffalo Bills cannot afford to continue to have poor tackling like they have these past several games. It has significantly hindered their run defense these past several games. Ooh, awesome stat from Mr. Rich Haynes at Burden River Sports on Twitter. Rich says, key stat, Nick Chubb, 20 plus carries. The Browns are 3-0 when that happens. For whatever reason, the Browns get worried about 18 carries per game as the mark for him, quote unquote analytics. Well done, Rich. And I appreciate you stopping by. Awesome. And actually chilling around because you were here earlier. I appreciate you, Rich. This is actually, I think, a key piece too. Like, all jokes aside, when Chubb is getting those 20 plus carries, I think it also speaks to the game script working for the Cleveland Browns, right? If they get down early, like any team, you have to pass the ball more. If they stay within single score or 2-score game, if this game can stay within 10 to 14 points, this run game isn't going anywhere. And the closer it is, the more the Browns can stay true to who they are and really lean on this run game, which is also terrifying because even though the Bills rotate a lot on the defensive line, it's just simple physiology. As the game goes on, you get tired, right? You get more worn down. You don't want to defend the run late in the fourth quarter or late in the third quarter when big, ugly monsters up front have been mashing you all game and you've had to tackle Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt all game. So if the Browns can stay in this game and they can get, Chubb to that 20-plus carry mark like Rich mentioned there, it's not just a random number. I think it ties into who this team is, and it speaks to when they're in these games where they're either leading or they're within an earshot of tying it or taking the lead, they're able to stay on the ground. They don't have to divert to the pass like they did against Miami, right? It was 10-7 this past week against Miami. Then it was 17-7 going into the half. Miami scored to start the second half, and it was 24-7. Now, all of a sudden, you're down 17. You got to change who you are a little bit because the game script isn't going to allow you to focus still on the run. Excellent piece there from Rich. Jason says, this is a reference to my tweet earlier. Jason said, your tweet said if I wanted to feel better, I should watch this stream. I saw us mess up and run D against the Vikings, and now I am seeing Nick Chubb highlights. Yeah, but I also showed you a bunch of good stuff for the Buffalo Bills and showed how they can win up front and they have the ability to impact, not just from a numbers perspective, but from a one-on-one execution perspective. But fair. Also, Autumn coming in and saying sweats nervously. Yeah, that's fair. Ooh, really good run from Mr. Nicholas Chubb here on this play. Now, let's go to the next one here. This is a duo run from Kareem Hunt. This is a run that a lot of teams use now. We actually showed several runs like this for Devin Singletary in the preseason for the Buffalo Bills. This is a good run by Hunt, but also really good blocking like we're going to see. So let's go to the tape. Tight end comes in motion. Here we go. I'm going to pause it right after the snap a little bit. Okay. Just beautiful. Beautiful. If you're the Browns, from a blocking perspective, from a Kareem Hunt perspective, let's start to, move it forward a little bit here. Boom. So duo run, Jedrick Wills, big on the backside, ISO block here, combo block here. One of these has to get to the second level, pick up Tranquil, double team here. Again, combo block, move to there. Okay. Watch one before we even move forward. Watch what Jedrick Wills does, he's injured, but it looks like he's going to play this week. Watch what he does to this edge. Watch what he does. Smacks the hell out of him. Watch Jedrick Wills, left tackle, number 71. Whew. Terrifying. Duo runs are designed to go front side, so to the tight end side on this play, right? Kareem Hunt reads it. Now he sees Tranquil kind of sitting here and then can't deny that this bus lane for traffic that's over here, but watch him press, get upfield. He doesn't cut right away, right? He doesn't declare to the point that Tranquil can come and even try and fill in this gap, right? He presses it. He stays vertical. It's smart, right? It's subtle, but it's smart. Then he cuts it back. Maybe we get a little hold here, but watch. It's not enough of a hold from Teller to draw the call because he lets go. Hunt's already by him. Gets upfield, gets in the second level, get a tackle. Not a great tackle on the back end, but a tackle nonetheless. Really good pieces from the Cleveland Browns attack. So we saw just a really good play, individual effort from Nick Chubb. Now we're seeing good execution and design from the Browns, but a really nice run and piece from Kareem Hunt and good blocking up front. And again, this is something that you can see, like what we showed against the Minnesota Vikings. What do we got for defenders here for the Chargers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe you want to count this as 8 if you wanted to. I'm not. So you got 7 in the box against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the Browns. What have we been talking about all episode, right? Even bodies means you're short a gap. 7 defenders in the box versus 7 blockers. 7 blockers means 8 gaps. So you got 7 defenders for 8 gaps. And what's key about this, right? Again, because this is a front side run, this is where that extra numbers advantage is, right? That's where the extra potential for somebody to come fill is, because it's not coming from the backside. Because let's look at the weak side aspect of this run here into the field side. Derwin James would have to be the supporting guy, but he's got assignment on that slot receiver, so he's pulled. So this is the numbers advantage piece. 1, it's a corner in JC Jackson. 2, it's to the side that Kareem Hunt does not run towards. So you're set up for even further disadvantage, right? So we talked about it. If you have even numbers, you're short 1 in terms of your gaps. So a defender from the second level or third level has to come up and make the tackle. But because this run goes weak side, there's less help to that side. Derwin James actually does a decent job of penning it in, kind of forcing it. Again, not giving up the home run hit, but successful run can gouge you in a hurry. This isn't a run. I just wanted to show a really good throw from Jacoby Brissett. Again, he's not a world beater. He's not a sexy quarterback. He's more of a backup than he is a regular starter. But watch this filthy route from Amari Cooper, one-on-one man coverage here against JC Jackson. Just watch this nasty route. And then Brissett, again, he has all the time in the world and Cooper's open, but watch the ball placement. Beautiful. One more time. Fake the post, hit him with the corner, go in slow-mo, cuts right here. JC Jackson bites on it. Cooper is watching. Look at the eyes on the feet. He's watching JC Jackson try to jump this route. Bang, foot in the ground, turns, and Brissett puts it where only he can get it. Leads him to the sideline. Really good throw. Now, let's look at Nick Chubb. Outside zone run for the Cleveland Browns here. Another shocking, successful run. Presses, hits the hole. And again, that breakaway speed, if you're not going to make the tackle from depth, carries Asante Samuel Jr. a little bit downfield. But again, it's the execution piece, right, for what you're going to see from the Cleveland Browns and tying it into what the Buffalo Bills have been. You got Brissett checking, making his adjustments here. You have the Chargers communicating. Let's look at the Browns O-line, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the offensive line. 6 is the tight end versus how many in the box? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Chargers have the numbers advantage, right? From a gap perspective, they've got 7 defenders versus 6 blockers. 6 blockers means 7 gaps. 7 gaps for 7 defenders. Success. The math works. Everybody wins. But because this is an outside zone run, Khalil Mack gets left. So he gets shut off. So in essence, it's these 6 versus these 6. That's what the Browns are able to do on this play. Let's go forward. Okay, zone run. Also, you see the boot action from Brissett. It makes Khalil Mack hesitate just the slightest. Just the slightest. Watch Khalil Mack. He hesitates just a little bit right there. I'm going to go back in case you don't see it. Watch Mack slow down just a little bit. Just enough to prevent him from making the play on the backside. But it's the front side action. Combo block here, double team. Watch the climb to the second level and the seal here. Beautiful alley. Great blocking from the offensive line. Boom. Chubb doesn't even have much work to do here. He just paces it, puts his foot in the ground, gets upfield, protects the football. Very nice piece from Nick Chubb. But again, this is what you got to do for the Buffalo Bills. This is going to happen to you at some point. Can you come from depth and make the tackle? The Chargers do not here. Chubb has the speed that changes angles. Watch. This safety has the advantage, right, from the angle. But watch Chubb kicking into another gear, bang, and change the angle. That safety should have him dead to rights. We saw James Cook do that to Micah Fitzpatrick on his touchdown run against the Steelers. You got to be sound. Your angles have to be on point, and you have to get support and help from everyone, right? So if this is Christian Benford on the outside, it doesn't matter that Chubb broke through the first level, right? It doesn't matter. You have to get on your horse and take angles and be able to box this in. Prevent him, keep him literally in this area and try and limit what you can. That's going to be the huge piece, right? The Buffalo Bills have not done that these last several games. They have been getting beat with tackles in the hole, tackles downfield in open space. It hasn't been ideal. And Chubb gets through, makes a play. Good run from Mr. Nicholas Chubb. Phenomenal running back, arguably the player of the year here at this point. So, wanted to really show all those pieces from a film perspective. And I know, some, sweats nervously from Autumn. And, what Jason said, like I said, I make you feel better, I feel worse or watching these highlights. I don't think the Bills' run defense is as bad as it seems like it is, or potentially seems like it's becoming. Again, the Bills are number 1 defensively in DVOA, and they're 5th against the pass and 6th against the run. This isn't a bad defense. This isn't a bad run defense. What's happening recently is they're a bend but don't break defense. They've broken more recently. And again, I think also some of that is to be expected. I'm not giving a pass to McDermott. I'm not giving a pass to Frazier, but first-time starter at safety in Cam Lewis, backup linebacker for Tremaine Edmonds, no Greg Rousseau, inexperienced corner and Christian Benford, who's still growing, who's still a rookie, even though he's played very well, especially for a 6th-round corner out of Villanova, who didn't have the best tape necessarily, well, at least from my perspective, but granted, I only saw the one game, so the sample size is small, but you've got backups, you've got 2nd, 3rd, and 4th stringers playing in some positions, and you've lost a bunch of key cogs and components. I think it's understandable to a degree that there is more breaking in this bend but don't break defense, but I also think some of it, again, is due to the nature of who the Buffalo Bills are. They are a live by the sword, die by the sword type of defense. They want to get upfield. They want to penetrate. They are a one-gapping, here's my gap. My job is to get through it and cause chaos. Make a tackle in the backfield or get to the quarterback, right? And when it works, it's beautiful because what happens? They get a tackle for a loss. And now it's 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13, 2nd and 14, maybe even more. The Dane Jackson run blitz that I showed, right? That was 1st and 10. That was a -6 play for -6 for Minnesota. So it's 2nd and 16, right? And now you're forcing the hand of your opponent. That can happen sometimes where you create a tackle for a loss and a negative play for the offense. Or on the flip side, live by the sword, die by the sword, you might give up a 6-yard gain. You could force an 8-yard loss or get gouged for 8 yards. Force a 4-yard loss and a tackle in the backfield, or maybe you give up a 12-yard run. What we've seen more is the pendulum has swung recently more towards giving up the bigger plays and breaking a little bit more. I think, again, a lot of it is due to poor tackling in the hole and in space. And some of it offensive design. Teams are using that motion that we showed from KJ Osborne where he, got that jet motion and it pulled Matt Milano from the box. We're seeing more of that from teams who are using the Bills' rules for how they push and respond to motions and changes in alignment and formation, how they use that against them to pull defenders from the box and either create a numbers advantage or a personnel advantage. So you pull Matt Milano from the box, and now he's no longer a box defender. Taron Johnson is a box defender, who I love. Taron Johnson, he's a dog, and he's a nickel corner, slot corner, who's one of the best slot corners in the league and who plays the run and fits the run like a linebacker. But I would still, if I'm the opponent, I'd rather have Taron Johnson in the box than Matt Milano. And if I'm the Bills, I'd rather have Matt Milano in the box than Taron Johnson. So teams are using their rules against them a little bit, and they're executing and they're eating. But I think the key piece to not lose sight of is the Bills still have some good horses up front. As I showed with several of those Ed Oliver clips and the Daquan Jones clip, they have the ability to win up front. So even if they're not committing numbers to the box, right? Even if they're not committing numbers to be able to fit every gap and they're short a gap, they still have the ability to win up front because of the players they have and the system and scheme that they play. The other piece that I think is very interesting in this game is, Jason comes in and says, I actually love everything about this game. This team needed to focus on the run defense. This is the perfect game where they spend a lot of the week fixing the run D. I believe we can fix what we focus on. What I'm very interested to see, especially if the weather is bad, right? Do the Bills come out in more single high safety? Do they keep DeMar Hamlin more in the box? Or if Dean Marlowe is the other safety opposite him, are they playing Marlowe more in the box, right? Are they committing more to a single high look in a safety in the box? Are they saying, we will not get outgapped no matter what? Do they dare come out and just straight up dare Jacoby Brissett to beat them? I mean, and maybe they do that anyway, even if the weather isn't a factor, but if the weather is, it skews more towards that type of game plan. Do they try and play those odds? which they haven't this year. Again, the Bills, 70% of the time, they're in too high pre-snap. They're too high shells pre-snap. Again, anytime you hear too high shell, that means that pre-snap piece, right? The Bills like staying in too high. Maybe they do that, but then on the snap, they immediately spin a safety down, right? Or maybe they keep them naturally more towards the box. I'm interested to see with how, like Jason says here, how important of a focus the run game is, right? How much do they skew who they are towards that run defense piece, or do they stay true to their philosophy and do they not, unfound their identity and who they are and really just kind of play that piece? So I'm very, 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 very interested. It's a good matchup, like Jason said, again, and a good opportunity to kind of prove who you are or test some things that, maybe you're not necessarily comfortable with, or play the matchup against an opponent who just can gouge you and destroy you, literally destroy your existence in the run game. So it'll be a good test. Now, I want to do a little bit of group therapy. Those of you who are still live with me here on this episode, you've been tremendous. I see a lot of the continuous comments coming from the same cast of characters. So I appreciate you folks. What's bothering you right now? What are you worried about? What are you concerned about? What is your worry coming into this game? Is it some of what we've talked about? Is it Josh Allen? Is it something on the offense? Is it some other piece? I wanted to go through and grab a bunch of the comments here from the question that I posed to Twitter earlier, and I'm grabbing the ones that overlapped with what I also got into the DMs as well. So let's grab some thoughts here for this team. One that I continuously have been getting is, again, the piece of what the Bills defense can do from a run defense perspective against the Cleveland Browns. And I don't think, again, I don't want to downplay it. And I don't want to sit here and act like the Bills run defense is completely fine. But I don't think the Bills run defense is as bad as they've shown these past several weeks. Some of it has just been, again, like we showed earlier, you call a run blitz to the right and the run goes to the left. Or you call a run stunt and you're stunting right, the play goes to that side, so effectively you pinned yourself and you made it easier for you to get washed down. Other times it's just individual execution not happening, and some missed tackles. A lot of it can be cleaned up, and some of it is bad luck that will regress towards the mean. That being said, the Browns running game, like we've showed, is a very formidable opponent. Whether you're looking at the offensive line, again, Wills, Batonio, Teller, Conklin, just those four right there are tremendous. And then you add two really good running backs, arguably the best running back in the entire NFL this year in Nick Chubb, and his backup is Kareem Hunt, who's a tremendous running back in his own right. Commenting from Charles, turnovers, ginormous gap, and then everything else. I think that's fair. For everything that happened to the Bills defense this past week, again, I don't put any one thing as the core or sole cause of a loss. There were a multitude of factors that led to the Buffalo Bills losing that game, including the turnovers, especially when you turn the ball over in the red zone. There's never a good place to turn the ball over, because if you turn it over in the red zone, that means you cost yourself points. If you turn it over closer to midfield or closer to your own red zone, you give the opponent a higher opportunity for points. So there's never a good place for it, but turnovers have killed the Bills. I mean, it cost them points in the red zone this past week, at the very least, even on that fourth down interception, because Peterson picked it off and ran it out. Instead of getting the ball closer to their own goal line, the Vikings are starting off closer to their own 40. Obviously, the fumble on their own goal line that led to direct points and a defensive touchdown from the Minnesota Vikings. So, yeah, they have to get those turnovers under control and in a hurry. This is a great comment from Michael, and then I'm going to dive into some more comments from the chat and also from Twitter. Michael says Josh Allen gives, Josh Allen takes away. This is a piece I mentioned on Twitter earlier the week, and I wanted to drill home. The turnovers that we're seeing from Josh Allen, right, where he's forcing things downfield, yes, he has taken more of what the defense has given him towards the back end of last year and towards the beginning of this year. But in his heart, in his core, he tries to maximize every inch out of every single play. He tries to squeeze every last drop of blood from the stone on every run, out of every pass. The Josh Allen that everyone marvels at and applauds because he puts his shoulder down and runs through a linebacker to get an extra 3-4 yards, that's the same Josh Allen that sees double coverage and thinks, I don't want to take the check down. I want to hit that post, and he throws it and it gets picked off, or it has a chance to get picked off. That Josh Allen with that aggressive nature, That's who he is. He takes shots, right? Last year against New England, in New England, he's rolling to his right. He throws back across his body to the middle of the field, something you are never supposed to do, to Emmanuel Sanders. Manny Sands goes up, jumps, catches it, brings it down. Donta Hightower, Bentley, and Phillips look at the sky and go like, oh, dude, what the hell? Momentum shift for the Buffalo Bills, momentum killer for New England Patriots. This year, he tries to do a very similar thing against the Green Bay Packers, rolling to his right, throws across his body to the middle of the field. Rasul Douglas picks it off, right? He can be spectacularly amazing, or he can make some spectacular errors. A la, I don't like player comps for people, but the Brett Favre comp is pretty accurate. Favre would make throws that were 1 in a million that no one else could make, like Josh Allen. He would also make some throws that you would see and just go, why the hell did he just throw that? What is going on in his brain? Sometimes it's just a guy who's trying to maximize every ounce of potential out of every play. Josh Allen goes for the throat on every single play. And he stopped doing that a little bit towards the back end of last year and beginning of this year. We saw more checkdowns. We saw working the underneath a little bit more. But, again, like Michael says, Josh Allen gives and Josh Allen takes away. Who he is with that aggressive nature and forcing the ball downfield, that's who he is as a runner. That's who he is as a quarterback. That doesn't mean he can't course correct it a little bit. That doesn't mean he can't be reined in a little bit and turn the dial down on some of those risky plays or some of those risky moves. That doesn't mean that can't happen. But I just don't think it's all that surprising. It's definitely disheartening and disappointing when you see him try a throw that he probably shouldn't try and it gets picked off. But he tries throws like that all the time. And that's why he's an alien, because he makes these throws and it just, everybody's jaw drops and you just see this amazing play, right? It's the same guy who, again, he should probably slide after he got 10, 12 yards, but nope, he wants to put his shoulder down and run through a linebacker. He doesn't want 12 yards. If the max play he can get for a run is 13, he wants 13. Even if he got 12, he wants 13. He's always going to try and get that and push that button and turn those dials up towards the aggressive piece. So live by the sword, die by the sword. With the Bills one gapping light box type of defensive front, also live by the sword, die by the sword with who Josh Allen is. Very, 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 very good comment there from Michael. I want to grab some other comments here. Weather is a big one. Again, we talked about it earlier. I don't want to say weather won't be an issue, but from reports that we're hearing now, we're going to get pounded with snow tomorrow night, Thursday night, and into Friday, and then even into Saturday morning a little bit, and that's going to start to dissipate a bit Saturday and into Sunday. So the efforts over the weekend will be more about stadium cleanup, roads cleanup leading into the game. So we'll see. So please say, oh, awesome comment here. The best way to slow down the Browns run game is hitting the like button. I would greatly appreciate that. If you folks are enjoying this content, please hit the like button. Again, it goes a long way towards helping myself and the entire team legitimately to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. Likes are the lifeblood for live streams. So please, and thank you. Thank you very much for that comment. I'm tremendously appreciative of it. Other comments here. Health is a big one. And it was, mentioned earlier. We've talked about it a bit. And then comment here from J-Dub, want to pull it in as well. He says, if Edmonds is healthy, I might rather have Dotson in than Taron Johnson at times. If Edmonds is hurt, I'd rather see Taron Johnson in than Bernard. That's fair. But again, all of it stems from if Edmonds is healthy or if Edmonds is hurt. And that's this rotating cast that the Bills have continued to play with. Is Tremaine Edmonds going to play? Is Jordan Poyer going to play? Is Kyrie Elam going to play? Is Tre'Davious White going to play? Probably not, with the weather and footing and him coming off a knee injury. Is Gregory Rousseau going to play? All of these pieces, you're playing musical chairs every week with who's injured and who's not. Then you have the reports coming out today of all the players that had an illness, not COVID, but just had an illness to the point that they couldn't do a team practice. They had to do individual drills. This team just keeps getting hit with this injury/health bug in a bunch of weird ways, which again, things regress towards the mean, sometimes negatively, sometimes positively. The Bills have been one of the healthiest teams over these past several years from a volume perspective. And this year, the pendulum has swung hard in the opposite direction there, which again is understandable to a degree, but unfortunate. More comments revolving around Tremaine Edmonds. Some other comments we got, and it was reflected in the chat here and on Twitter as well, the tackling piece. I think that's the fair issue to have for a lot of people and a lot of people's minds. I think open field tackling is going to be a huge part. I think run fits, like we talked about and we showed, like gap control and gap integrity and being sound in your gap coverage is up there and in terms of priority, but it's the open field tackling piece, right? And tackling in the hole. Like the Bills have had opportunities, even what was the third or fourth down conversion to KJ Osborne on that slide route, and he catches it like 1 or 2 yards short, and then he breaks the tackle from Taron Johnson, and who hits him? And I think Cam Lewis hits him, but he gets like the yard. He gets the first down by like half a yard or like half an inch or something. Like the tackling just keeps rearing its ugly head, and it's been very unfortunate for this team. And again, against a team, like we mentioned earlier, who the Cleveland Browns overall first in yards after contact per attempt by running backs at 3.4, and then specifically against boxes with 7 defenders or less, first again in yards after contact per attempt at 3.8. You can't afford to miss tackles against Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and they'll force it because they're big, they're strong, and in Chubb's case, he's big, strong, fast, shifty. He can do anything and everything. Bills are going to have to be on point. Jason with a comment here saying health is the biggest thing to me. Trying to make a game plan, but having different personnel to work with every week. There's so much uncertainty. It never makes me feel uncomfortable. That's a huge piece. And again, I think it ties into the Leslie Frazier aspect. Like, what game plan is he cooking up? That question is, I think, has to be answered with, okay, well, what personnel does he have available? Like, if you want someone to make chili, but they don't have a meat or sauce, they can't make chili. They got to make something else. What can you do? So what he has available in the cupboard, I think, will go a long way towards determining the game plan. Again, I don't think that's revelatory. I think that should be thought of more. But I think some people are seeing red when it comes to Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott in terms of what they're doing. The health piece is absolutely huge for this Buffalo Bills team, offensively and defensively, but it really has seemed to hit the defensive side of the ball hard these last couple of weeks. But nonetheless, they're going to have to get through it, and Frazier's going to have to curate a game plan with what he has available in terms of, trying to slow down this Cleveland Browns running attack. Again, for me, I don't think, oh, great comment here from Jason. He says, imagine trying to implement a game plan early in the week on defense as Frazier and McDermott, and then you're going throughout the week unsure of who you're working with. I think that is so hard. That's even more fair, right? Because you're kind of like in the pool, out of the pool. Like, will they, won't they? Like, am I going to have this guy? Am I not? Who do I have? Who will I not have? What do I do? Can we run the same game plan with 2 different players? Again, and then you're expanding that towards 3, 4, 5 different players. It's not easy. It's what makes coaching a tremendously hard thing to do from a time commitment perspective and also from an execution perspective as well. It's a hard piece. I think with all of it, so the Bills, how can the Buffalo Bills slow down the Cleveland Browns run game? One, it starts with a potential game plan or scheme tweak if they want to commit more numbers to the box. I don't necessarily see that happening or want to expect that to happen. So that's kind of point one. But point 1A right underneath it, it starts with winning one-on-one up front more in terms of their execution. You got to win your one-on-ones. You got to be able to anchor versus double teams and not get driven back against zone and gap runs. Again, what we've shown for the Cleveland Browns, like we talked about earlier, very diverse in their run scheme, 45% gap run rate, 52% zone run rate, almost a 50-50 balance. That's unheard of and unreal in today's NFL. So they can do a variety of things against you. Wayne comes in and says 8 in the box and make Brissett beat you passing. Maybe we will see that game plan. But from that run game perspective, you got to win your one-on-ones, especially if you're playing with regular or lighter boxes. You got to win up front. Even if it's not just one-on-ones, you got to make the double team work for it. You got to make the double team efficient. You need to drop that knee like we showed with Ed Oliver, anchor down, not allow for displacement, not allow for push for that offensive line, get penetration, whether it's just straight up winning, whether it's reading the play, whether it's a run blitz or a stunt up front or games that you're using, penetrating, getting into the backfield, winning one-on-ones and causing havoc up front. The Bills can slow down the Cleveland Browns by winning up front, which they did to a decent degree against the Minnesota Vikings. They will need to do it more against the Cleveland Browns. And a close 1B right behind that 1A is the tackling piece. That Dalvin Cook clip that I showed to lead off this film study, really, that 81-yard touchdown, that could have been held to a 5, 6, 7-yard gain if Christian Benford makes that tackle. Could have been held to a 15 or 20-yard game maybe if Cam Lewis takes a better angle or if Benford slows him up enough to Cam Lewis, being able to being able to take a better angle, right? Because Dalvin Cook's speed changes angles, and holding that 81-yard touchdown to, again, a 5, a 6-yard gain, or a 10 or 15-yard gain, anything, right? That open field tackling piece, something that the Bills have struggled with, that is right there. So how can they slow down the Cleveland Browns run game? Winning more up front. Again, in an ideal world, they just commit 8 to the box. I don't necessarily see that happening. I don't want to expect it. So winning up front in your one-on-ones, just winning up front in general, getting penetration, getting push, right? Getting into the backfield, causing havoc, causing chaos. Open field tackling in the holes, sound run fits. That's how the Bills can slow the Cleveland Browns run game down. And like we showed, right? The Minnesota Vikings had several good runs against the Buffalo Bills. They also had runs where they got stonewalled and stopped for negative gains. So we showed it. Run blitzes, or just players winning up front, slants, stunts, a variety of things the Bills can do up front, right? There is a path to victory in this matchup and in the game as a whole. But it's going to be tough. The Browns run game is tremendous. They've got a very good offensive line in terms of execution and in terms of, again, identity, scheme, structure, individual ability, talent up front and in the backfield. They're diverse. They can work that play action game piece in there. And then just from a receiving perspective, I know we're focused on the Browns run game, but if you hit a couple play action pieces, you got a wide receiver out there, and Amari Cooper is one of the best route runners in football. And so if Kaiir Elam is still out, I think Cooper versus Dane Jackson or Cooper versus Christian Benford is advantage Amari Cooper. If you're playing with 8 defenders in the box, corners are on more islands. That means more one-on-one opportunities for Amari Cooper. Yes, Jacoby Brissett has to be the one to get him the ball and, in essence, beat you, but that's advantage. Cleveland Browns. David Njoku comes back. If Tremaine Edmonds isn't there, how do the Bills cover the tight end position? What resources do they have to allocate in that regard? It's going to be a very good chess match for the Buffalo Bills in this game, and exciting to a degree. Nerve-wracking and heartburn-inducing, but a good matchup nonetheless for the Buffalo Bills. And, I wanted to get to more of the pieces from, the group therapy session. We've gone long on this episode already. We've got a lot of questions, thoughts, comments coming in. We're going to start to wind down here on the show. I want to thank everyone who joined me here on this episode tonight live. Before you leave, if you're seeing the outro here and you're like, this episode's done, cool, I'm out, please drop a like on this video. Please, 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 and thank you. If you are still here, please drop a like on this YouTube stream. And this video goes a long way towards helping myself and the entire team to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. It legitimately affects the algorithm. So please and thank you. Drop a like on this video. If you are listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, please rate and review and subscribe while you're there. Also subscribe to Disguise Coverage here on YouTube as well. Subscribe to Disguise Coverage everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever, anywhere, and everywhere. Please, 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 and thank you. Let's give a shout out real quick to the best sponsor, One Pie Pizza. Still up the graphic there. One of the best. I pointed to the right spot. One of the best logos in the game. Delicious sweet sauce pie, cup of char pepperoni, fantastic cheese to sauce ratio, anything and everything. Actually, we're not going to wind down yet. I'm going to change that banner at the bottom from Toodles, you guys, and stay in there as One Pie Pizza. We're going to talk about some more things as we wind down here. Delicious sweet sauce pie. They got the Toys for Tots drive going on right now for the community. You go in, you drop off a toy, you get a ticket to win potential prizes in a raffle, one of them being a mini football helmet signed by Josh Allen, some Sabres tickets, a variety of things in the community. But even if you don't win, it's cool. Drop off a toy for the children, for the tots, do some good in the community. One Pie Pizza is tremendous in terms of what they do from a food perspective, but also from what they do as a community, driven and community focused organization in small business. So go get yourself some One Pie Pizza. The online menu can be found in the episode show notes here on YouTube or anyone on the podcasting apps and platforms. Go get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Drop a toy off while you're there. Do some Toys for Tots. Also, betting is fun and betting is huge, right? Let's show a video about Cover One's partnership with BetUS.
Hey guys, Cover One is excited to announce our new partnership with BetUS. BetUS has a live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business, and an easy deposit and withdrawal process with the fastest payouts in the industry. Our loyal Cover One fans get a choice between two exclusive offers, either a 125% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,500 or a free $50 bet with no deposit required. Just use promo code COVER1 on the links provided in the show description below. BetUS, where the game begins.
Use the promo code. Get yourself some betting action. I got a lot of friends who, BetUS and all the other platforms, and aspects of trying to get in on parlays and individual game bets and scenarios and over-unders for different halves and games and just anything and everything you can do now. We're tremendously proud of that partnership with BetUS. So go take advantage of that aspect. Go get yourself some one pie pizza while you're at it. Bet, get some pizza, do some toys for tots, all these things. I want to let everybody know how much I appreciate all you folks, whether you join me live, whether you watched later, listened later, whatever have you, live viewing, post live viewing, listen, download, whatever have you. I appreciate the support that you folks give in any and every way that it comes, tremendously and sincerely from my heart. Thank you to everyone who joined me live in tonight's episode. Thank you to all those who watched later, listened later. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well, staying safe, taking care of one another, being kind to one another. If you live in the Buffalo area, hunker down, get some gas tomorrow, get some groceries, stock up, because maybe trapped indoors for the next couple of days. Make sure your snowblower is good to go. Prime that sucker. Make sure you're ready. If you got no snowblower, make sure you got your shovels ready and they're in good condition. Make sure you got some boots and some gloves and a variety of things. We'll probably end up getting like 2 inches of snow and it'll be a dusting and nothing. But regardless, prepare for the worst and hunker down for this potential weather. And also check on your loved ones. Make sure they're also prepared for the worst as well. Don't want anything bad or tragic to happen to anyone in this potential snowstorm that happens over the coming days. Thank you, folks, for being here. I appreciate all the kind words that are coming in from me later here on the chat. So thank you very much, folks. I appreciate sincerely all the kind words and just your presence here, the live engagement, the questions from me, the back and forth, the support on Twitter, anywhere and everywhere it comes, the post live views and listens. It's all tremendously and greatly appreciated by myself and the entire Cover One team. So thank you very much. Please drop a like on this video, rate and review and subscribe on the podcasting apps or platforms and here on YouTube. Go get yourself some one pie pizza, the best pizza in Buffalo, New York, hands down. I promise you that. It is the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. Drop a toy off for the tots while you're there. And also if you're in it for selfish reasons, you get an opportunity to win an awesome prize from a raffle perspective. But drop off some toys for tots, help out the community, get yourself some delicious pizza. Go to BetUS, use that Cover One promo code, get yourself some awesome action, start betting and, lose your entire mortgage on a bet or pay off your mortgage in a month because of how much you won. Possibilities are endless. I appreciate you folks. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. Stay safe. I will see you next week. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.